Billy was sent back to Lincoln to await execution. The courthouse there became his cage. Guarding him were two deputies, James Bell, younger and earnest, and Bob Ollinger, older, cruel, and often mocking the prisoner. Ollinger carried a shotgun he called his Whitney, a heavy, double-barreled weapon he loved to show off. He had no idea that this very gun would soon be turned against him. Life in the courthouse was grim, but Billy remained sharp. He studied routines, noticed patterns. He joked with townsfolk who peered through windows to catch a glimpse of the famous kid. Some recalled him saying things like, "Don't worry, I'll be walking out soon enough." Most assumed it was bravado. They didn't realize he meant it literally. To understand why Billy was even in that courthouse, we need to rewind. The Lincoln County War of 1878 left New Mexico shattered. Ranches burned, businesses ruined, men buried in shallow graves. It was a world of grudges, revenge, and shifting alliances. Billy, still barely more than a boy, emerged from that war with a reputation. He was loyal to his friends, deadly with a gun, and fearless when cornered. But the war also made him a marked man. Every lawman, every bounty hunter, every rival faction wanted him caged or dead. By the end of 1880, Billy was worn down. He'd spent years on the run, sleeping in dugouts, hiding in ranch houses, eating whatever scraps friends could spare. Yet, he kept slipping away from posses, kept laughing in the face of danger. The people of New Mexico whispered about him with a mix of awe and dread. To some, he was a Robin Hood figure. To others, he was a menace. Either way, Billy the Kid was unforgettable. Enter Pat Garrett, tall, lean, a former buffalo hunter turned sheriff. Garrett had once been on friendly terms with Billy. They'd crossed paths in the same outlaw circles. But by late 1880, Garrett wore a badge, and his mission was clear: bring Billy in. Not just for the law, but for his own reputation. Capturing the kid would make Garrett famous, maybe even secure his political future. In December 1880, Garrett and his posse cornered Billy at a snow-covered place called Stinking Springs. Surrounded, cold, exhausted, Billy finally surrendered. For once, the outlaw who always found a way out had no escape. Shackled and marched back to civilization, Billy still carried himself with a strange calm. According to multiple accounts, he even joked with his captors. That was Billy, never letting anyone see fear, even when his world was collapsing.
Slow, or is it just because I'm enjoying the view?
Keep your mouth running, kid. It won't make the miles shorter.
Well, can't blame a fella for trying. Chain rattles like a sleigh bell, kind of festive.
Ain't no...
Fast forward to April 1881. Billy stood trial in Mesilla, accused of killing Sheriff William Brady back during the Lincoln County War. The courtroom was packed, the press swarmed, and when the verdict came down, guilty, the judge pronounced the ultimate sentence: death by hanging. Billy was to be executed in Lincoln on May 13th, 1881. Imagine the weight of that moment. 21 years old, sentenced to die. Newspapers had a field day, painting Billy as a ruthless killer who had murdered 21 men, one for each year of his life. The reality? Historians like Robert Utley and Frederick Nolan point out the number was far smaller, maybe a handful. But the legend was too good for reporters to resist. Billy the Kid wasn't just a man anymore. He was a story.
Order in the court.
Billy was sent back to Lincoln to await execution. The courthouse there became his cage. Guarding him were two deputies, James Bell, younger and earnest, and Bob Ollinger, older, cruel, and often mocking the prisoner. Ollinger carried a shotgun he called his Whitney, a heavy, double-barreled weapon he loved to show off. He had no idea that this very gun would soon be turned against him. Life in the courthouse was grim, But Billy remained sharp. He studied routines, noticed patterns. He joked with townsfolk who peered through windows to catch a glimpse of the famous kid. Some recalled him saying things like, "Don't worry, I'll be walking out soon enough."
Don't worry, I'll be walking out soon enough.
Most assumed it was bravado. They didn't realize he meant it literally. The afternoon of April 28th started like any other. Deputy Bell escorted Billy from his cell across the courthouse toward the privy. Billy was shackled, but somehow, accounts differ, he managed to free one hand. As they reached the stairwell, Billy made his move. Whether he wrestled Bell's gun away or had slipped a hidden pistol into play, what we know for certain is this. A gunshot rang out inside the courthouse. Bell stumbled, mortally wounded. He staggered down the stairs, out into the yard, and collapsed. In that instant, the legend ignited. Billy wasn't waiting to hang. He had just killed the first of his guards, and the courthouse erupted into chaos. Across the street, Bob Ollinger heard the shot. He raced back, likely furious, likely certain that the prisoner couldn't possibly escape. But Billy was already in position upstairs, holding Ollinger's own shotgun. As Ollinger stepped into range, Billy reportedly leaned out and said two simple words. "Hello, Bob."
Hello, Bob.
Then he pulled both triggers. The blast killed Ollinger instantly. It was brutal. It was shocking. And it was the moment Billy cemented his legend. He had turned his jailer's pride and joy, the Whitney shotgun, into the instrument of his freedom. Now unchained, Billy quickly armed himself with more guns and ammunition. Witnesses said he moved with astonishing calm. He crossed the street, whistling, as if he had all the time in the world. At a hitching post outside, his horse waited. Billy mounted up, tipped his hat, and rode out of Lincoln. Behind him lay two dead deputies. Ahead of him stretched freedom, at least for now. What made it even more surreal was the mood. The whole town froze. People stood in doorways, silent, watching the kid ride away. Some swore they heard him humming. Whether true or not, the image stuck. Billy the Kid, singing his own soundtrack as he escaped the noose. News of the escape spread like wildfire. Papers printed sensational headlines. "The Kid escapes." Saloons buzzed with the tale. Some people cheered his daring. Others shook their heads at the audacity. Governor Lew Wallace was livid. Pat Garrett, the sheriff who had caught Billy only months earlier, was humiliated. How could the most wanted man in the territory walk out of a courthouse in broad daylight? For Billy, the jailbreak was more than survival. It was transformation. He was no longer just an outlaw. He was folklore, larger than life. A symbol of defiance on the lawless frontier. For the next 2 months, Billy hid out around Fort Sumner, drifting between the homes of friends and sympathizers. He was the most hunted man in New Mexico, yet he still found sanctuary. People risked their safety to feed him, hide him, or simply keep his secret. To his enemies, this was infuriating. To his admirers, it proved he was more than a criminal. He was a people's outlaw. Historian Paul Hutton has argued that this escape elevated Billy into the pantheon of American folk heroes. Like Jesse James or Robin Hood, his story wasn't just about crime. It was about daring, wit, and a refusal to bow to authority. In a land where law often meant corruption, Billy represented rebellion. But let's not romanticize too far. The escape left 2 men dead. James Bell and Bob Ollinger never went home again. Their families grieved. And though Billy's jailbreak dazzled the public, it also marked him with blood. Any chance of amnesty, any whisper of pardon, vanished the moment those shots were fired. From then on, there was no way out except death. As the summer of 1881 drew near, the chase was almost at its end. Pat Garrett had tracked Billy across deserts and towns, through whispers in saloons and rumors on dusty trails. Word finally reached him. The kid was back near Fort Sumner, sheltered among friends and old allies, moving through the community like a ghost, sometimes seen, never caught. Garrett knew this was his last chance. Fort Sumner was familiar ground for Billy, but it was also a trap waiting to be sprung. Every night the kid lived, there was a gamble. Every friendly doorway, a possible betrayal. Garrett began to gather his men, mapping out the final move. The stage was set. A scorching July night, the desert air heavy and still, the moon full and bright, casting shadows sharp as knives. And somewhere in that silver light, Billy the Kid would walk straight into history. The jailbreak of April 28th, 1881, wasn't just an escape. It was a performance, a final act of defiance in a life built on survival and risk. By gunning down his guards and riding out of Lincoln with iron in his hand, Billy turned himself into pure legend. For a brief moment, he lived untouchable, roaming free under the open sky. Every step another reminder that the kid could outwit the world. But freedom has its limits. Garrett was closing in, and the circle was tightening fast. In our next episode, we follow the lawman to Fort Sumner, where old friendships would sour, where betrayal lingered in the shadows, and where, under a moonlit sky, one gunshot would bring the saga of Billy the Kid to its tragic end. So stay tuned, because even in death, the legend of Billy the Kid was only just beginning.